Episode 10 of Widow's Bay has just been released, and in the dramatic conclusion to the first season of what I think is one of the best shows of the year so far, not only did we see Tom feeling the weight of dragging other families to the island and putting them in danger, but we also saw a twist that's gonna see him living with a dark secret that put the trolley problem in a more personal way. And we also saw the sinister history on the island and the fact that the island itself could have an entity that represents it deep below the shelters. So with that, let's unpack that tasty finale, break down what happened, and look ahead to Season 2 as well, seeing as though it's been announced to be returning. Here is Widow's Bay Episode 10, Ending Explained. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. Ruth's secret was revealed. For those of us that predicted correctly and thought that Ruth wasn't going to be the last descendant of Richard Warren, we were right. I thought it felt too good to be true that they'd just kill Ruth and be able to put the curse to bed. I always felt like it was going to be Evan, even before the Ruth reveal, and as we saw, Evan is the person that's keeping the curse connected to the island. After finding out that Ruth was supposed to be the last living descendant of Richard Warren, Tom planned on killing Ruth during the episode because he wanted to end the curse on the island and for it to be lifted, and for those that were trapped to finally be able to leave without any issues to their health. Tom was searching in Ruth's medical records with the hopes that she had an illness which meant that she'd die soon so he wouldn't have to go through with it, or he was hoping that she was on the cusp of death so it was something that was inevitable anyway. When he arrived there, we saw that there were niceties that were taking place, such as Ruth saying that she thought he'd forgotten about her, how they'd weathered storms together before, and she was even getting him a towel so he could dry himself. She was being nice to him, and it was making things even more difficult for Tom to be able to go through with ending her. We also saw that she had a full calendar which showed that she was a busy individual and lived a full life, and we also saw that there was somebody called Deary that relied on her to get up and out. Otherwise she'd stay at home the entire time. So it showed that not only did killing Ruth end her life, but it would end the life of others. This first third of the episode was all about making it difficult for Tom to go through with it. When Ruth was going through her photo album of her life, I actually thought we'd see an image of Lauren and it be revealed that she was her mother. However, we didn't see that at all. Instead, we saw parts of her life unfolding through photos, and we then saw the brooch that Frances was given by Sarah all of those years ago, which confirmed to Tom that she was definitely a descendant of Richard Warren. He was originally doubting it because he couldn't believe that he was just taking Rosemary's word for it, but this then made him realize that she was correct. With the 2 pieces of medication that Ruth was advised to not have together in her file, Tom mixed it into her tea, and whilst he thought that she was dead, what we instead saw was that it caused her to loosen her tongue and almost feel intoxicated. This was why she then revealed that she had a secret child with a married man, and she ended up giving the child to the man that she had an affair with so that the baby could be raised by him and his wife. This was when it was then revealed to us that the secret baby was Lauren, Tom's deceased wife. Ruth used to call her secret mummy, which is why Lauren wrote to Evan and said that in life you have your real mother and your secret mother, so it connected to that. This then made Tom realize that the trolley problem that he put towards Ruth earlier was way more personal than it ever was, and he needed to hold on to the secret and burden that the town's curse was going to continue to haunt the island because Tom's son Evan was now the carrier of it. The person that Tom spent the entire episode wondering the safety of and wanting Patricia to check was okay. There was an embrace that Tom gave Ruth which almost showed a humanity to him, and he wanted to save her. We got a deep insight into Tom's mind in this episode where we heard how he single-handedly felt responsible for bringing the people to the island because he wanted to make the island better for his son, because he knew full well that he'd never be able to leave, but in doing so, he'd realized that he'd risked the safety of many other families there. When he went to get Ruth to a doctor, Bashir stormed in and fired his weapon at Ruth, which was a massive shock. Bashir didn't want his child that was going to be born on the evening of the storm to be stuck there like many of the other residents that were there. And with Patricia revealing to him that Ruth was the last living descendant, that's why he went round there. I thought it was a great twist because I really felt like he was going to be going there with the hopes of getting Tom to stop and to ultimately save Ruth, but it was the complete opposite. With Ruth still being alive, we saw Tom look to try and save her, and judging by the fact that we didn't find out if she died or not, I imagine she's going to have survived. There was a deeper connection between Tom and Ruth now, and even though he disregarded her for the most part of the show, she's now family in his eyes. Bashir wanted to know who the last living descendant was, but Tom claimed that he didn't know, and I feel like this is a secret that Tom's going to be taking with him to the grave, because he knows that if he reveals it to anybody in the town, then Evan's life would be on the line. Tom won't kill his son. He's the entire reason he's doing the job that he's doing, why he's trying to rebuild the island, and his biggest fear is losing him like he did his wife. So it puts Tom in a really interesting predicament, and I can't wait to see how he handles that next season. I also think that Tom will end up telling Evan. It's about time the two were more honest with each other, and I think Evan deserves to know that. However, what I will say is that I did almost interpret Tom throwing the brooch into the sea as him almost burying the secret and hoping to just ignore it. The island's history and why the storm stopped. What I loved about this final episode is that it set up an even darker season 2 by drip feeding us more information about the island's more recent history. We first heard it when Rosemary said how the person that used to do her job warned her to not go down into the shelters, and we then caught glimpses of it with the film footage that Dale found, and also the fact that Evan and his friend went down deeper below the shelter. What it seems like is going to be delved into in the next season of the show is the entity that represents the island and the human sacrifices that were made to civilians with the hopes of getting the storm to stop and keeping the darkness of Widow's Bay at bay. As we saw, certain individuals were described as being offerings, and with a note that said, "If you read this, then I'm already dead," people were being sacrificed to a being that would willingly stop the storm if offerings were made. Whilst it feels like this was from the past, we also saw that it's still lying down there. When Evan was down in the basement, there was an electric chair that was down there, and there was also a door to a cellar that looked to go even deeper that couldn't be opened. With Kenny going down and telling Evan and his friends to get out of there, they locked him in there, and that was when we then heard a rumbling, Kenny screaming and him simply disappearing. Kenny was the offering in this situation, and after the offering was made, the storm simply stopped. This makes me think that there's a physical being that actually represents the island and is deeply connected to it. It feeds off of the residents that are there, and within the video footage it was said that their sacrifices would help save the people. So during that time period, a period that the island seemingly looks like they've tried to forget, or the government just tried to bury, they worked out a way to stop the storms from getting to the level that we've seen them at. With this secret being unearthed, it's going to throw the morals of the town into question, and if this is the very thing that prevents Tom from needing to put his son in harm's way, I believe we'll see him questioning the approach. He was prepared to kill Ruth after all. I imagine Dale will tell Tom what he saw, and then Evan will also tell Tom too, and that will be where this next part of the story and an even darker side to Widow's Bay will begin to be unearthed and explored. My review of the episode. The fact that I'm gutted that the show has concluded tells you just how good of a show it's been. I think this could quite comfortably be in the top 3 shows of 2026, and it's easily the best debut show of the year. The writing, the visuals, the performances, the score, the comedy, it just didn't fall short on any occasion. It's a prime example of Apple TV just knocking it out of the park with its original shows, but it just not getting the eyes that it deserves. I thought the twist with Evan being the last descendant was pretty predictable, but I loved the way that it was revealed. I loved the trolley problem theory that was posed, and the fact that Tom was quite literally prepared to kill Ruth. He actually thought he did, and I also loved the twist of Bashir storming in and planning on killing her too. I didn't expect that at all. At first, I was confused as to why Apple announced that Widow's Bay had been commissioned for a season 2 before the finale even aired, but in seeing the story that they've set up, it makes complete sense because it's put all of our minds at ease in knowing that the story is going to be continued. I actually think this show had some of the best comedy writing that I've seen in years. It balances out the serious nature with small moments that genuinely make me laugh. Take when Ruth offered Tom tea. He picked one, but then it took 27 minutes to steep. His reaction genuinely had me laughing out loud. There are just ludicrous moments or ways that things are said that just go against the tone and take you out of the situation in the most natural, complimentary way, because it's almost what the characters are thinking too. I thought this season of the show was dark, but the sacrificial element that looks like is going to be explored in the next season is something that I think will take this show to even darker levels when it returns, and I think it's going to be interesting to see how it develops forward. They could have continued with the Richard Warren 1700s timeline, but it feels like we're going to be getting flashbacks to what looked like it could have been between the 50s and 60s maybe, so I'm excited to see that. The final thing that I want to compliment this show on is the performances. They were all incredible and there wasn't a single weak link. Patricia and Tom were definitely my favourite, but Ruth carried this episode well. The Rosemary genealogy was great last week, and Wick has also been incredible too. Matthew Rhys is one of my favourite actors at the moment, and I'm glad to see him popping up in more and more. Like I said earlier, Widow's Bay has easily been one of my favourite shows of the season, and there's going to be a void every week with it now finishing. However, I'm so glad that it's been commissioned for a second season. So, there you have it, Widow's Bay Episode 10 Ending Explained.